There is a group that has been knocking on doors for over 100 years. Politely, consistently, rain or shine. They bring books. They bring smiles. They bring what they describe as good news. And yet, in country after country, in courtroom after courtroom, they consistently rank among the most negatively perceived religious organizations on the planet. In France, government bodies have classified them as a high-control group. In Australia, a parliamentary inquiry found systematic failure to protect children from abuse inside the organization. In the United States, legal settlements involving mishandled abuse cases have reached over $100 million. In Norway, courts have repeatedly examined their treatment of former members, with the case now heading to the Supreme Court in 2026. So how does that happen? How does a religion built on family values and Bible study end up generating this level of institutional scrutiny, this volume of survivor testimony, and this degree of quiet, devastating exodus? That is the question this video is going to answer. And I want to be clear from the start. This is not a smear campaign. It is a story that built slowly, across more than a century, through decisions made by a small group of men at the top of a very tall organizational tower. Most of the people inside never saw it coming. Many of the people who did paid a price most of us cannot imagine. Part 1. The image versus the reality. From the outside, Jehovah's Witnesses look like one of the most disciplined, functional religious communities in the world. Families sit together. Members study their scriptures seriously. They show up, every week without fail, to meetings most people would find demanding to attend even once. And here is where the story gets complicated, because that impression is largely accurate. The overwhelming majority of Jehovah's Witnesses are exactly what they appear to be: genuine people who believe with everything they have that they are doing the right thing. The critique this video is building toward is not directed at ordinary members. It is directed at the system those members live inside, often without fully understanding what that system costs. There is a woman named Lisa, not her real name, but her story is real, and versions of it exist in the thousands. Born into the organization in the American Midwest, meetings 3 times a week from the time she could walk. She turned down a university scholarship because elders discouraged higher education. She was told, gently but repeatedly, that the end of this world was so close that investing in a secular career showed weak faith. She is now in her 40s. She left in her mid-30s. And she will tell you that rebuilding a life from scratch, without the community, without the family members who stopped speaking to her the moment she walked out, was the hardest thing she has ever done. Her story is not exceptional. It is typical. Understanding how a system produces that outcome, at scale, across generations, that is what this video is actually about. Part 2. Where control was built. In Charles Taze, Russell founded the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in the 1870s, a sincere man with genuine questions about mainstream Christianity, who built a global publishing operation within decades. But here is the structural detail that changes everything. From its earliest days, the movement was built around a single centralized authority, not local pastors, not regional clergy, a printing organization, theological authority, doctrinal authority, and eventually behavioral authority all flowed from the top down. His successor, Joseph Rutherford, consolidated that power further. He eliminated the local elder system, renamed the membership. They were now Jehovah's Witnesses, and established the concept that would define the organization forever. The idea: God had appointed this specific organization as his exclusive channel of communication on earth. To question the organization was not merely disagreement. In their theological framework, it was a rejection of God himself. That concept, exclusive divine authority, centralized with no legitimate avenue for dissent, is the foundation of everything that follows. Part 3. 1975. And what it revealed. For years through the late 1960s and into the early 1970s, Watchtower publications taught that 6,000 years of human history would conclude in 1975. The expectation of Armageddon was not vague. It was specific, repeated, and carried enormous practical weight. Millions of members restructured their lives around it. People sold homes. Couples decided not to have children. Young members abandoned plans for college and careers. One elder later described giving away his life savings in 1974, certain he would never need money again. 1975 came and went. Nothing happened. The organization's eventual response subtly implied that members had been overzealous. that they had read more into the publications than leadership intended. Former members who lived through it described that response as more revealing than the failed prediction itself. The institution had been catastrophically wrong, and instead of honest reckoning, what followed was tighter control. Members were discouraged from dwelling on doubts. Anyone who raised the failed prophecy as a genuine theological problem was pressured to recommit and trust the organization. That pattern, prediction, failure, deflection, renewed demand for loyalty, would repeat itself across the following decades. And each cycle trained the membership in the same direction, to distrust their own judgment in favor of organizational authority. Part 4. The Doctrine Machine. Watchtower theology operates on what they call new light, the idea that God progressively reveals deeper understanding over time. In principle, intellectual humility. In practice, a system where teachings presented as divine truth can be reversed without apology, and members are expected to embrace the new position with the same total conviction they applied to the old one. The blood transfusion doctrine is the most consequential example. The prohibition has been one of the organization's most visible teachings for decades. Members carry medical alert cards. Families have gone to court over it. People have died refusing this procedure. But the specific details of what is forbidden, which fractions, which procedures, have shifted repeatedly. Former members describe a particular kind of horror, realizing someone they loved had died based on a doctrinal line that no longer existed in the same form. The generation teaching followed a similar arc. For most of the organization's history, members were taught that the generation alive in 1914 would not die before Armageddon. That teaching gave the end times timeline a human anchor and shaped life decisions for millions. As that generation aged and died, the teaching was revised, then revised again. The current version is so complex that longtime members struggled to explain it. And underneath all of it sits the new light framework, the mechanism that transforms every doctrinal reversal into spiritual progress. You cannot say a teaching caused harm. You say the light is getting brighter, and you move on. This is what former members mean by thought stopping. Not that questions are openly forbidden, but that the system provides a pre-built answer to every destabilizing question, and every answer terminates at the same place. Trust the organization. Part 5. The stories that don't go away. The child abuse scandal within Jehovah's Witnesses is documented in official government proceedings. The Australian Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse found that the organization's internal judicial process had failed victims systematically. Among the findings, a policy requiring 2 witnesses to an act of abuse before formal action could be taken, a standard that, in the context of child sexual abuse, almost invariably protects the perpetrator. The Commission identified over 1,000 alleged abusers whose cases had never been referred to police. The organization's consistent posture, in Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom, and beyond, has been to handle abuse cases internally, through congregational committees rather than civil law enforcement, and to instruct members that going to secular authorities constitutes a betrayal of biblical principles. For the families involved, no doctrinal explanation has ever been sufficient. The real reason people stay, and the real reason they break here, is the mechanism that holds everything together. The thing that explains not just why people become disillusioned, but why leaving is so extraordinarily, deliberately difficult. The practice of shunning. When a baptized Jehovah's Witness leaves, whether by resigning or by being disfellowshipped, their term for formal expulsion, the consequences are immediate and total. Every member of the congregation is expected to cut off contact entirely. Friends of 20, 30, 40 years. And most devastatingly, family. Parents are expected to shun adult children who leave. Children are expected to shun parents. Siblings stop speaking. The organization frames this as compassion, social pressure designed to motivate the person to return. But the psychological literature on shunning is not ambiguous. Systematic exclusion causes measurable, documented harm. Former members describe it as social death. You are not simply leaving a religion. You are losing every relationship you have ever built, overnight, by institutional decree, while the people who love you are told that cutting you off is what God requires. In Norway, courts have examined this practice closely, with the Supreme Court set to deliver a final ruling in 2026. That debate centers on whether the threat of total social exclusion constitutes pressure so severe that membership cannot be considered genuinely voluntary. And that is the answer. That is what keeps people inside when they no longer believe. That is why thousands of people around the world describe themselves as PMO, physically in, mentally out, attending meetings they no longer accept, performing a faith they have privately abandoned, living a double life for years or decades, not because they are weak, but because the system was engineered to make leaving as costly as possible. Conclusion: the only question that matters: how did a religion known for quiet door-to-door evangelism become one of the most legally scrutinized, most survivor-documented religious organizations in the modern world? Not through one dramatic moment, not through a single villain, through a structure built over a century, one that centralized authority absolutely, made loyalty theologically non-negotiable, trained members to override their own judgment, and made the cost of leaving so severe that millions remain inside long after they have stopped believing. Most of the people inside that structure are not victims in any simple sense. The community provides genuine belonging, genuine meaning, genuine love. Those things are real, but the system surrounding those genuine things has been found, by courts, by government commissions, by independent researchers, to cause serious and documented harm, to children who needed protection, to adults who needed freedom, to families who needed the right to stay together without an institution deciding otherwise. This story matters beyond this one organization, because it demonstrates what happens when authority becomes unchallengeable. What happens when the cost of honest disagreement is set high enough that most people simply stop disagreeing out loud. The question this video ends with is not whether Jehovah's Witnesses are right or wrong about their theology. That is a matter for each person's own conscience. The question is simpler, and it applies far beyond this one religion. In the community that shapes your understanding of the world, do you have the actual freedom to disagree? Not in theory, in practice. Could you walk away tomorrow, quietly, for your own reasons, and keep your family, keep your oldest friendships, keep the relationships that make your life what it is? If the answer is yes, that freedom may feel ordinary to you, unremarkable. For a very large number of people around the world, it is the one thing they have spent their entire lives without.